Hi, Megan. Doug Bonjour with the AP. How do you obviously it's a quick turnaround. How do you get your team to kind of refocus after the emotional high of winning your first tournament game and getting them to, prepare for tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing obviously was, enjoy the moment. Like, let's be here, let's celebrate this. But, we didn't come here just to win that game. And, they know that. We've been talking about that for a while. And most important thing they could do last night, honestly, was just take care of themselves, get a good night's sleep. Obsessing on West Virginia last night wasn't going to help them. That was my staff's job. So, honestly, this morning they got up, they were ready to go, locked in, had a great film session. And, obviously we're going to attack the court later today. But, it's just kind of being in the next moment, I think, and being able to do that for these next 24 hours now, I think is really honestly what's going to prepare us the most.
Right down here in the middle.
Hi, Jillian Franzi with the Columbia Daily Spectator. You guys have gotten pretty used to back-to-back this seasons. You mentioned the other day about how you planned the Bahamas like that on purpose. Do you guys think in a quick turnaround like this, you have the advantage compared to a West Virginia team that hasn't played since I think March 8th?
I always like to say that there's something about rhythm, and I do feel like we're in a rhythm right now. Obviously coming off the Ivy League tournament, that was not very long ago. It wasn't even a week ago now, but just having played, I think there's advantages both ways, and obviously we're going to look at it as an advantage our way because I do think it's important having that ball in your hands, having the rhythm, playing a game, competing. I think we saw that a little bit second half with Washington. It's just we broke each other's rhythm up in different parts of the game, right? So I am expecting that tomorrow, but I'm also expecting us to be able to settle in and execute our game plan. And just with West Virginia's pressure, just having the mental and emotional kind of wherewithal as well, not just like let's physically be ready to go, right? But yeah, so honestly, yes, I do feel like we have an advantage there, but I'm sure they're saying the same thing.
Down to the front there.
Hey, Coach, Doug Feinberg, the Associated Press. Courtney was up here before singing the praises. She enjoyed watching you guys play yesterday, sort of as a proud parent in some aspects, that having you here, having carry over in the area, and having Lehigh here also, three of her former coaches and players together. Is there some sort of camaraderie and bond that in the Ivy League you obviously have carry, but also having Lehigh here and having Courtney here, having like the history you guys all kind of have together?
Definitely. I always say this, like, there's no secret in that sauce. Courtney's a winner and she's hired winners and she's coached winners. And, we've all bonded over our relationships as well. Carrie and I never worked together, but I was the director of operations for Addie in her last 2 seasons. And, there's something special about when you do hard things together. That's a large reason why I love coaching, why I love this profession. And I just think we all really respect each other. And respect, what we've been through to get to these places and get to these head coaching jobs, the three of us now. So, but Addie's parents were here last night, in their Lehigh gear supporting me. Got a text from Carrie the day before. So, I do think we're definitely rooting for each other. And, it's fun to be a part of that tree. Absolutely.
Coach, we'll head down here to the left.
Hi, Coach. Cody Esper, West Virginia Sports Now. I'm sure coaches don't want to have to play in the first 4, but is there an advantage? West Virginia hasn't played for 2 weeks. You played last night, so you figure if they have any rust, you guys are going to be ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta look at it at every advantage you can get, right? That's what we always talk about, finding your edges, and that's definitely one we've talked about with our program and with our team. I think they're obviously going to be ready to go. I'm sure they're ready to play. But for us, honestly, I said we're a rhythm team. I like that we've been in rhythm. I like that we've had opportunities to be playing recently. So we're going to attack that and use that definitely to our advantage.
WV Metro News. For a West Virginia team that not only presses the way they do, but changes the looks they give you, is it difficult to prepare for that on a quick turnaround like this? I know some of the players mentioned Harvard in particular as somebody that you've drawn some comparisons to.
Yeah, I think you call back a lot of your experiences, right? I call back Duke, I call back Harvard, I call back, a couple other opponents that we've seen with similar tendencies. Even Washington, Sellers last night. I heard Quinterly do a lot of the same things. I think Quinterly's a hell of a player too. And so we're not going to be surprised by anything that they do. We spent a lot of time looking at this team as a staff and trying to make it a simple game plan, right? So they might do a lot of different things, but for us, it's about let's play numbers up. When we get numbers up, we're attacking, we're playing freely, but when we're numbers even, we're executing. And, just trying to keep that game plan simple so that they're not overthinking in the moment.
Anything else in the room before we hit Zoom? Are we good? All right, Steve Silverman, we're coming to you.
Thanks. Well, first, Coach, congrats on such a huge win last night. And my question really is about that, because you're so good at messaging to your team and getting them motivated. Last year there were a lot of new things and firsts that were accomplished. First ever NCAA berth for the program. This year, first ever outright championship, and now first ever win in the tournament. What's going to be your motivational message to the team as to why they just got to win this game against West Virginia?
Yeah, I think this is a moment where you call back the journey that you set out on, right? And I always talk about delayed gratification with our team, and this is the ultimate form of delayed gratification is not just expecting to do something, but going out and earning every inch of it. And I can tell you, we're going to fight for every inch of that game tomorrow. That's just our team. If anybody saw that last night on display, I think they know that's in our DNA. We're going to do it with a lot of love in the room too. So that's, for me, honestly, it's just calling back, what we set out to do and why we set out to do it, and reminding them of that continuously throughout the game.
Steve, did you have a follow-up to that?
Yes, if you don't mind. So if you could also talk a little bit about, of course, the big signature thing with West Virginia, the zone press. I got to see it up close last year in the tournament against Princeton. It is relentless. And I'm just wondering how you think about sort of the trade-off between, on the one hand, being tempted to attack that thing and score easy buckets on some, they're double teaming and they're overplaying and they're trapping, versus risking playing into their hands by doing that, because then they're speeding you up. They're making you make quick decisions. And I'm wondering what thoughts you're having about that trade-off and other dynamics of how to attack that zone press.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I would say this: as much as they're, a team that creates a lot of havoc, they're extremely disciplined team as well. And there's strengths for each player in that pressure. And, it's not equal opportunity. They definitely know their roles. They play them to a T. And so we're trying to help our team understand when to attack, when not to attack, when to set up. When the ball goes here, this is what we're looking for, right? So we're not looking at it as let's just beat the press, right? No, it's way more calculated than that. And I can tell from having watched it, from having studied Dean Smith's run and jump, what some of their tendencies are and characteristics and what they're looking for. So to me, this is way more of a methodical, like, this is how we're attacking this. It's, it's a little bit of a math problem. But at the same time, there's a feel to the game, right? You gotta feel the game. And so, again, against a really disciplined, disruptive defensive team, we got to make sure that, one, our feel is on point, but two, we're trusting each other. We're meeting the ball. There's just some basic, basketball things that we need to accomplish as well, outside of just what is our structure.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll go to Jen Hatfield.
Jen Hatfield with the next. Hey, Meg, yesterday before the game on TV, they showed a little snippet of your pregame talk with the dominate your next decision phrasing, and the players keep mentioning that too. And I feel like I've heard you say like kind of similar things before, but not necessarily with that phrasing. So I'm curious, like, is that something new, or is that something you've been saying all year and it's kind of just become a catchphrase right now?
No, that's newer. To your point, like, there's definitely things in the same vein that I've said, but I'm just constantly searching for what's going to catch and what's this team. Everybody is, like, with leadership and how you get messaging across to people. It's not a one size fits all. Certain teams take to certain messaging, and this team really takes to in the moment and what's the next thing. Like, we can say a lot of different things, just kind of depending on who our opponent is and what the moment is. And coming off of the Ivy League tournament and just kind of where their heads were at. I felt like a lot of it was we were playing not to lose. And so we just kind of tried to flip the script back to, hey, we're going to dominate the next thing. We're not dwelling on mistakes, because that's what led us to the outcome that we had, right? And again, I think Kitty said this well. We were just way too outcome driven in that Ivy League final. So, this is just a new way to look at it. And I think it's really simple, short and sweet.
Jen, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, that'd be great. Meg, I know you love a good revenge tour. Do you take on kind of the mantle for the league here? Steve mentioned how West Virginia knocked out Princeton last year. Do you manufacture that at all? Or even just watch that tape at all?
I love obviously our league, and I'm really proud of our league. But I'm really just focused on Columbia basketball right now, and that's where my head's at. So, I'm not taking on anybody else's revenge. We have plenty of it for ourselves. So I'm focused on that right now, Jen.
We'll go to Rob Brown next.
Hey, Coach. The other day when talking about Washington, you thought speed and physicality were going to be the key. That maybe it's harder to say that with West Virginia. So what are the areas that you feel you have an advantage going into tomorrow's game?
Yeah, well, one, size. It's unique to have a size over Big 12 opponent, but their guards are all smaller than our guards. Now they're extremely talented and athletic and fast. And then they also start a stretch player, right? So it's a different matchup for us. So I would just say, our size. I also think we're a team with multiple primary ball handlers, and that's unique because they haven't really seen that. They've seen teams that have great ball handlers and great decision makers, but we do play multiple primary ball handlers at the same time, and I think that's going to serve as a different challenge as well. So, again, we're going to be different than what they're used to seeing. I can tell you that. But I think that's the beauty of March, right? Is that the matchups are what make this tournament so special, and we're looking to attack this tomorrow.
Next up, we'll go to Madeline Kenny.
Hi, I was talking to Riley's dad today a little bit about her recruiting process to Columbia, and he said that you guys were just really aggressive. What was it that you saw in Riley, and how has she, 2 years into her college career, either met or exceeded the expectations you had for her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. Thinking back to that, I've known this kid since she was in 8th grade. So yeah, I knew, one, it's very rare that you see a player shoot the way that she does. Her against anybody in the country, I'm saying it right now, if they're just shooting threes at the top of the key, 100 of them, she's making more than you. And that's just mechanical, execution right there. Her mechanics are flawless. And now the other part, and this is the part I knew would be her biggest growth step, was just like the mentality to play college basketball at this level. And I think that's what I've been most proud of is Riley's level of toughness. I don't know if anybody knew. She definitely didn't, how far and how high she could grow, what her ceiling would be. And, I just told her, I was like, listen, you're the only person that's going to put limits on what you can do. And if you buy in, you believe in, I promise you, I'm nowhere near as skilled as you were, but I know how great of a motivator and a leader, and I'm somebody that's really going to challenge you. And if we buy into that together and our relationship's really strong, you're going to go where nobody thought was possible. And I've said this to her, Abby Shute, talk about the greatest player that ever played at Columbia. I think Riley could have a better career than that. And honestly, it's just going to take her mentality and how she approaches the next 2 years. But it's fun to see what she's doing right now, and I'm excited for what's next.
Richard Kent, do you have a question?
Hey, Megan, congratulations. Megan, you were a great player at Columbia. You coached against Columbia at Princeton. You took over the job. Was there a moment in time in which you said, in any of those junctures, hey, Columbia could be a great national program?
When I was a player here, I remember I was recruited by a coach that he left after my first year. Then I had another coach. She ended up leaving after that year. Then I had another coach. Then I had another coach, right? So I had 4 head coaches in 4 years at Columbia, which is super not likely. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. It's just not average. Nobody's used to that, right? I don't know if there's any players anymore that have had 4 different head coaches unless they transferred 3 different times. And I always just said, I just don't really get why we can't figure this thing out. And to me, it was just consistency and leadership, having the right leadership in place, and having somebody that really believed in the institution and could blend athletics and the institution. And, when Peter got the job, and, obviously I was really close at Princeton, watching from, a couple miles away, a different town in New Jersey. I just said, hey, that's going to be my job one day. And what we're doing here at Princeton, I know I can do back there because nobody's going to care about it more than me. Nobody's going to have more pride in it more than me. Nobody's going to stay. Nobody's going to have stability. And so when Peter gave me the opportunity to come back home, it was all kind of just like, all right, now it's time to do it, right? So I would just say when I was a college student, I saw the potential, but I just didn't see, you don't see the leadership and all the things above you at that moment. So honestly, I'm just grateful that I was given the opportunity to do it now.
We're going to come back into the room here to the left.
Daniel Woods, WV Metro News. Sorry, you mentioned having 4 coaches in 4 years. For JJ Quinterly, Mark Kellogg's her third in 4 years. So I guess just seeing her career from afar and now as what she's become as a senior, what stands out about her game and in your eyes, what makes her special?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's no secret. Like, it's actually, I knew there was 2, but I totally forgot about her first year. Yeah, she is a heck of a player. I can tell you that, and she's a competitor. And she keeps her cool. You know, that's what I really like about her game, is that you don't really see her get rattled. Obviously, she can get hype for herself, for her teammates, and the plays they're making, but extremely talented. And there's just a dogged nature in her. It's just like she's not going to quit on anything, on any play. And there's a relentlessness in her attack to the basket, which I love. I love watching that in guards. So, you know, she's special. You know, if she is looking for a coaching job, she can call me. But, you know, I think she's going to have a long, great career after this. And, you know, it's going to be fun playing against her tomorrow.